Oh, it's a nice, beautiful, gray, snowy late February day here in the metro Atlanta area. And you know what that kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of our Atlanta Hawks. Yes, the Atlanta Hawks, wow, what a team. 2014-2015 19-game winning streak. It was 19, right? Not 20. Well, anyway, they went undefeated the entire month of January. An incredible front five: Damari Carroll, Al Horford, Kyle Korver, who is statistically just shooting the lights out. There is no denying this is probably the absolute best Atlanta Hawks team that's come along since probably the 1993-1994 season. And I think that's a team that's very much worth bringing up when we talk about today's 2014-2015 Hawks. You see, right now the Atlanta Hawks, pending an absolutely massive collapse and injury, are probably going to get hot-shotted to the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. They're going to win their division, no doubt about it. They've already beat up on the Wizards. Nobody else, the Heat, they're not the team they are, especially with Chris Bosh being out. The Bobcats aren't doing anything. Doesn't really matter. The Hawks, they're going to be very, very highly seeded. They've got this division, and really this conference, locked up, heading into the playoffs. How they perform, totally different. But anyway, back to what I was saying with the 93-94 Hawks. That was also a very star-studded team. You had Mookie Blaylock, who, believe it or not, actually is now in jail, facing really major charges for vehicular homicide, allegedly, which is kind of crazy. You got Stacey Augmon. You had Dominique Wilkins until he got traded for Danny Manning for God knows what reasons. Well, anyway, that was a really good team. You had Michael Jordan. He's laying out. So that opened up the floodgates, and the Hawks, sure enough, locked up the first seed. They looked like they were headed towards, really just a run-in with whoever was doing good there in the Western Conference. They're ready to do battle against, the Rockets or the Suns or whoever was good back then. Not Seahawks, the Supersonics. So anyway, playoffs come around. They beat the Heat in the first round, as expected. Then they run into the Pacers. And the Pacers beat them 4-2. Something happened. Despite the fact that this team statistically was playing phenomenally. In fact, they were putting points on the board. They were playing great defensive ball. Something happened in the playoffs where all of that just came crashing down. And I think the same thing is probably going to end up happening with this year's team. Now, I don't want them to. I'm not a huge Atlanta sports fan, even though I live in the area. I've kind of been on the record on that. I'm a Raiders fan. I really don't care about baseball because the Braves always find a way to let me down, and baseball is pretty boring overall. Hockey, split between the Kings, Red Wings, and the Canadian teams. I fluctuate. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bandwagoner. But with the NBA, I really never had a team to begin with. This wasn't a sport I really got into. But since you actually have a local team doing somewhat decent in the Atlanta sports area, I guess I'll follow them around. And like I said, this team reminds me so much of that 93-94 squad. And the thing is, I think the exact same thing that everyone is praising the Hawks for, I think will eventually kind of be their undoing when the playoffs actually roll around later this year. The Hawks are a very, very good team, emphasis on the word team. You got the second-year coach coming in from San Antonio. He studied under Greg Popovich. And this is a team that plays just like the Spurs. They play good defensive ball. They spread it around. I actually heard a guy in Atlanta on a sports radio say this is a team that's willing to sacrifice good shots for great shots. And I think that really summarizes what the Hawks are doing to a T. A very technical game. A very versatile game, great passing, they're getting the points around, doing good with rebounds. Nobody is really standing out as being that impact player because the entire team functions as that star player. All 5 guys, and even the guys on the bench like Elton Brand, they're all coming out to do their part, and it's very much old school Hoosiers Teen Wolf style basketball. I like seeing that. I don't like the really crazy one-dimensional one-player-centric kind of style of play, which really has kind of come to represent NBA for quite some time until the Spurs took over. As far as the Hawks, like I said, they're going to be the number 1 seed. I think there really isn't a single team in the Eastern Conference that really poses much of a threat to them, with one exception. The Wizards, they've already beat up on them. The Raptors beat up on them. The Bulls, I think the Hawks pretty much outplayed them too. And they've played quite well against the best teams over in the Western Conference too. So if it does come down to Golden State or Memphis or even San Antonio, which is something nobody's really talked about, which I think would be amazing, that would definitely be interesting, without question. The thing is, I don't think the Hawks are going to make it to the NBA playoffs this year, or the NBA championship game playoff, that is. I think they will beat whoever's 8th seeded. They will beat whoever comes next. But I think once it gets to the Eastern Conference Championship, that's when things are going to fall apart, because I think they're going to end up playing the Cavaliers. Now, the Cavaliers fundamentally are not as good a team as the Hawks. You look at them, you know that. They've got one really, really great player and a fairly decent supporting squad versus the Hawks, who are just 100% no star players really, but it's a good fundamental team all the way around. I want to say good fundamentals win championships. You saw that with the Spurs, and I think we're seeing that replicated quite well with the Atlanta Hawks. The thing is, people kind of forget something. As good as the Spurs were, as good as they were playing fundamentals, as good as they were playing defensive, who ended up winning the 2013 NBA championship? LeBron. And I think what the Cavaliers have that the Hawks do not is that breakout player. That ability to just start putting points on in droves. You know, the Hawks, like I said, they're very good with the fundamentals, a very technical team, very good defensively, but what happens when they can't score? What happens when they encounter that team that's just putting up threes, that's dunking, that's getting the ball, that plays a faster amount of basketball? It really frustrates them. And I don't know, I think when that comes to happen, I think really no other choice. It's going to come to the Cavaliers. I think it's going to be a very tight series, but ultimately at the end of the day, I do think that the Cavaliers, they have that ability to put points on the board. I think LeBron, he is that big breakout player. He can shock everybody, and really, basketball it's a pretty much an individual sport. It's about, you know, when push comes to shove, do you have that one guy who can just come out like MJ, come out like Kobe Bryant used to? And I think that's the big variable that the Hawks don't have. You don't have that guy who can rise up. Sorry, Falcon fans. And I think at the end of the day, that's why the Hawks, probably the best season they're going to have in a long time. A good young team built for the future. They can win championships in the future. But I don't think they're going to win it this year. I think you got that big stumbling block in the way of LeBron and the Cavaliers. And it should be a good series, though. I'm definitely going to be invested. And you know what? I want to be surprised. I want a team in Atlanta to actually do very decent, or at least give me a good distraction for June. So there you go. Just my general thoughts on the Hawks. So basically, to recap, good team, very, very good team, teetering on great, but they're lacking that one fundamental element that's going to make them be a championship caliber team, and that, of course, is star power. But still, good team. Looking forward to playoffs this year. I'm going to be heavily invested in what goes on this year, more so than I have in any year I can think of before me. So who knows? I might just be proven wrong.